Welcome to Illuminati Silver. We tell you the truth about silver. Today is Tuesday the 20th of August 2019 and we are reading and commenting on an article written by one of our contributors, Dr. Richard North, entitled Brexit Predictions Set to Panic? In this article, Richard points out that a leaked government document highlights the potential carnage that could ensue in the event that a hard Brexit takes place on the 31st of October 2019, which is the date the UK is technically compelled to leave the EU on. He asks, what are the motives behind the leak, and are they all that they seem? We also give our views at the end of the article. So here then is the article by Dr. Richard North. Quote, Brexit. Predictions set to panic. When at the very beginning of August, Sky News published details of a leaked government document on the potential impact of Brexit, I wrote at the time that I was not very impressed by some of the predictions, which seemed way off the mark. Now, the Sunday Times is having a go, releasing more details of what it says is the government's classified, quote, Yellowhammer, quote, report. This, in a relatively short document, sets out the government's no-deal Brexit planning assumptions. Apparently, compiled this month by the Cabinet Office, we are told, offers a rare glimpse into the covert planning being carried out by the government to avert a catastrophic collapse in the nation's infrastructure, with a leak laying bare the gaps in contingency planning. The document marked official sensitive states that the government expects the return of a hard border in Ireland as current plans to avoid widespread checks will prove unsustainable. This, it says, may spark protests, road blockages and direct action. It also expects that logjams caused by months of border delays could affect fuel distribution, potentially disrupting the fuel supply in London and the southeast of England, while up to 85% of lorries using the main channel crossings may not be ready for French customs and could face delays of up to 2.5 days. Significant disruption at ports is expected, likely to last up to 3 months before the flow of traffic improves to 50 to 70% of the current rate. The petrol import tariffs, which the government has set at zero, will inadvertently lead to the closure of 2 oil refineries, 2,000 job losses, widespread strike action and disruptions to fuel availability, while there will be passenger delays at EU airports, St Pancras, Eurotunnel and Dover. As to medical supplies, these will be vulnerable to severe extended delays, as 3/4 of the UK's medicines enter the country via the main channel crossings. Furthermore, the availability of fresh food will be reduced and prices will rise. This could hit vulnerable groups. The government also expects potential clashes between UK and European Economic Area fishing vessels amid predictions that 282 ships will sail in British waters illegally on Brexit Day. And back home, there may be protests across the United Kingdom which may require significant amounts of police resources. Then, rising costs will hit social care, with smaller providers impacted within 2 to 3 months and larger providers 4 to 6 months after exit, while Gibraltar will face delays of more than 4 hours at the border with Spain for at least a few months, which are likely to adversely impact its economy. With these things and much more, however, one wonders why Prime Minister Johnson and his government are so keen to pursue a no deal. the situation without a deal looks to be a distinctly poor proposition. Looking in detail at one aspect of the planning scenario, it is assumed that in respect of the Channel ports, France will impose EU mandatory controls on UK goods on day one, having built the infrastructure and IT systems to manage and process customs declarations and to support a risk-based control regime. It is then anticipated that 50 to 85% of HGV's heavy good vehicles travelling via the short straits may not be ready for French customs, which could reduce the flow of HGVs to 40 to 60% of current levels within one day. Furthermore, the worst disruption to the short channel crossings might last 3 months before flow rates rise to about 50 to 70% of current flow rates, as more traders get prepared, although disruption could continue much longer. In the event of serious disruption, however, it is anticipated that the French might act to improve the flow. Nevertheless, it is expected that disruption to channel flow would cause significant queues in Kent and delays to HGVs attempting to use the routes to travel to France. In a reasonable worst-case scenario, we are told HGVs could face a maximum delay of 1.5 to 2.5 days before being able to cross the border. HGVs caught up in congestion in the United Kingdom will be unable to return to the EU to collect another load, and some logistics firms may decide to avoid the route. We then learn that analysis to date has suggested a low risk of significant sustained queues at ports outside Kent that have high volumes of EU traffic. But we are assured that the Border Delivery Group will continue to work directly with stakeholders at these ports to support planning readiness. From the way this evaluation is couched, it appears to be a fuller version of what we were seeing in a presentation slide in early August, with great similarity in the outcome. However, it is also very clear that we are being schooled to look at a worst-case scenario, the nature of which the planners are seeking to avoid. Lacking here are any details of the mitigation measures that have been and are being implemented on both sides of the Channel. And on that basis, one might expect that the authors of the Yellowhammer report are setting out a scenario that they do not or no longer expect to happen. Much of what we've been told in recent weeks goes toward ensuring that, whatever customs etc. measures are imposed on the border, every effort will be made to ensure that the traffic continues to flow and that queues on either side of the Channel are avoided. The scenario posed also neglects to allow for action taken by shippers and carriers in the first few days and weeks, voluntarily to hold back goods until the situation is clearer and the clearance procedures are better understood. Should that happen, with the implementation of mitigation measures, there is no reason to believe that there will be significant congestion on the Channel route, certainly in the first few weeks. One wonders, therefore, what the motivation might be of the person or persons who have leaked the report. One possibility is that they are trying to fuel enhanced concern about the effects of a no deal, in the hope that MPs focus harder on trying to avoid crashing out without a deal. On the other hand, we could be looking at an elaborate double bluff, in anticipation that Johnson's supporters will dismiss the planning assumptions and the scenario projections as Project Fear and discount them. When they fail to materialise in the immediate aftermath of Brexit, this will be taken as confirmation, leaving the way free for Johnson to hold his election without losing the support of his target voters. Those who have a pessimistic bent, and the many hardline Remainers who oppose Brexit, will readily believe any worst-case scenario that is fed to them. Many Leavers, on the other hand, are imbued with a blind optimism which will allow them to reject such scenarios. They simply will not believe them. As a result, the release of uncomfortable predictions will have little effect on the current level of Johnson's support. But if they then turn out to have been exaggerated, even in the short term, this could play to Johnson's advantage. In some respects, though, as we saw in early August, one might also suspect that the civil servants engaged in compiling predictions do not have a very good grip of the situation. In the section on food and water, for instance, they tell us that certain types of fresh food supply will decrease. Critical elements of the food supply chain, such as ingredients, chemicals and packaging, they also say may be in short supply. Yet they tell us in combination these two factors will not cause an overall shortage of food in the United Kingdom. They will simply, quote, reduce availability and choice and increase the price, end quote, an effect which will be felt greatest by vulnerable groups. Then, however, they effectively contradict themselves. The UK growing season will have come to an end, they say, so the agri-food supply chain will be under increased pressure for food retailers. Government will not be able to fully participate all effects on the agri-food supply chain, and there is a risk that panic buying will disrupt food supplies. An issue here is that panic buying does not merely disrupt food supplies. It strips supermarket shelves bare, more certainly than if a plague of locusts had descended on the land. And the scenario we are being presented with is one set to trigger precisely the panic buying that could do this. That also applies to fuel supplies, where we are told that traffic disruption caused by border delays could affect fuel distribution in the local area, particularly if traffic queues in Kent block the Dartford crossing. This would disrupt fuel supply in London and the southeast, and we are advised, quote, customer behaviour could lead to shortages in other parts of the country, unquote. Not only that, we're being told that supply chains for medicines and medical products rely heavily on the short straits, which makes them particularly vulnerable to severe delays. 3/4 of medicines come via the short straits, another trigger for panic buying. To see panic buying of both food and fuel and medicines as well would have a devastating and immediate effect on the economy and create a crisis atmosphere in the country at large. This would possibly ruin any chance Johnson might have of winning a snap election in the immediate aftermath of Brexit. Perhaps this is the real motivation, or perhaps not. In these febrile times, anything goes. And the more we learn, the less we know. Our view on this article is that we suspect Richard North is right. Those of us who believe that a Brexit from the EU is in the long-term interests of the United Kingdom do appreciate that there will be some short-term economic consequences. To deny that is placing one's head in the sand. The uncertainty alone that a hard Brexit would bring will in itself provide a level of disruption, minor chaos in places, and potential panic buying. Perhaps once many of the feared ramifications then fail to materialize, a more normal consumer behavior will follow, but there is no doubt that there will be an element of panic. That said, and Richard points this out, that panic will be intensified by the Remainers, those wanting to stay within the EU, issuing no end of reasons to panic statements in the hope that, last minute, a decision to leave could be either reversed, stalled, or renegotiated. We are aware that the Labour Party has every intention of calling for a no-confidence vote in the Boris Johnson government when Parliament returns from its summer recess on the 5th of September. If successful, and it appears at this stage that it might be, Johnson or the Conservative Party will have less than 2 weeks to reform a new government which has majority support, or a general election will have to be called. It is hoped by the Labour Party that this will happen. It is hoped that they will win and demand a new referendum on the EU, recommending to the public to remain. Now, there are many imponderables there and hurdles to overcome, but that is the intention. And supporting that, it is hoped by the Remainers that there will be so much panic driven into the hearts, minds and souls of the British public that a general election result will be a victory for those parties, particularly the Labour Party, calling for the abandonment of EU withdrawal. For those of us who purchase precious metals, and the value of sterling being important to its price, have to bear in mind that while this turmoil and confusion exists, sterling will remain weakened and could very well weaken further. Ironically, the greater the likelihood of a hard Brexit, such will be the level of fear. We could even see sterling hit 1.15 to the dollar, if not lower. It currently stands at 1.21. This will prove positive for gold and silver prices regardless of how they move in US dollar terms. That said, and assuming a post-exit hard Brexit, if the situation appears nowhere near as bad as predicted, then a sterling reversal will occur, and any increase in the likelihood of remaining in the EU will likely also strengthen sterling. Not because it's necessarily better for Britain, but because it will allay the alleged fear porn that has already been disseminated. What do you think? Do share your views. And before we end this video, we would like to point out that yesterday we conducted an interview with luxury watch dealer Paul Thorpe, who discusses the luxury watch market and provides a number of tips and recommendations for those considering buying a luxury watch. We put that video out quite late last night, which has resulted, unfortunately, in a relatively low viewing, which is a shame because Paul has many thousands of YouTubers watching his personal videos. So in case you missed it, we've put a link in the description box below. Also today, within the Inner Sanctum, we have placed an additional interview or an extended interview with Paul for those seriously considering buying watches for investment purposes. Now, we appreciate this is a niche market, and not everyone plans to do this. But assuming a number of us will have some serious spending money in months and years to come with increasing gold and silver prices, it's useful to at least keep in the back of our minds some of the recommendations Paul makes, as we may indeed be tempted to make that luxury purchase. Now, for those who are not bronze or silver members of our Inner Sanctum, and are keen to listen to this additional interview with Paul, we are offering a 50% discount for those who enroll this month. And this will give you access to a whole range of additional benefits and videos. And we place in the description box below the code you will need to enter at checkout. It's only valid until the end of August, so you only have 11 days left to use this code. Thank you again for listening. Do share your views. We hope you have found this video interesting and informative, and if so, please give it a thumbs up and share it on social media. Please ensure that you have subscribed to our channel and press the bell sign so that you are notified of any future videos. Also, kindly visit our website at illuminatisilver.com, and if you haven't already done so, please subscribe either as a free or paying member for regular email updates and offers. Disclaimer: Illuminati Silver owners come from a background of banking, international wealth management and economics. Having now retired from these worlds, we are not qualified to give investment advice. Therefore, this and other productions must not be deemed to be giving such advice and merely represent the personal views of its owners.